Item 10D, adopt an amendment number 7 to the franchise agreement for integrated waste management services with Recology San Bruno, implementing an organics food waste collection program and amending the rate adjustment application date.
All right, switching gears again. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, the current franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno went into effect on July 1st, 1998, and has been amended 6 times for such items as the collection of AB 939 fees, allocation of costs related to debris box services, and to extend the term of the contract or of the agreement. Amendment number 7, which is before you this evening, incorporates the recently approved Organics Food Waste Program scheduled to go into effect on January 1st, 2014 into the existing franchise agreement. The city worked with an outside consultant, HF&H, who has considerable expertise in this area of work, along with Recology San Bruno, to develop the proposed franchise amendment. The proposed amendment adds a service expectation for all types of customers in San Bruno and includes education and outreach requirements leading up to the program rollout and continuing thereafter. In addition to the Organics Food Waste Program, the proposed amendment also moves the annual due date for Recology's rate application up from the current March 1st date to January 30th, which will allow sufficient time for the city to thoroughly review the rate application and still meet the noticing requirements of Proposition 218. At this point, we thought it would be a good idea to have Kirsten Pinocchi, General Manager of Recology San Bruno, come in and provide you with an update of the commercial and residential organics pilot program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I want to give you an I wanted to give you an update on the pilot programs that are going on in San Bruno. The commercial organics pilot essentially began back in 2011 when we were approached by Walmart and YouTube to implement an organics collection program at their sites. From that, we've grown to over 10 commercial businesses participating in the organics collection program, and even the city facilities are also in the process of participating in the program. So, before the pilot began, the commercial customers that we just referenced were diverting about 31% of their materials. During this pilot program for the commercial customers, they are now at a 50% diversion program. 50% diversion. You might not, that's a 19% improvement, but just as a reminder, the majority of those customers have only been doing this program for 6 months. So as we know and as we've seen, it takes a while for these programs to mature, so we expect to see that number grow. But in just this short period of time, I think 19% was very effective for those customers. So then we wanted to roll out a residential pilot program, and with the approval of the council, we rolled out this program in June, and 315 homes were selected, and with 8 streets. And these 8 streets, the factors for selecting those streets included a variety of demographics, including people with yards and people without yards, and streets that weren't really participating in yard waste and streets that were participating in yard waste. We wanted a really good dynamic makeup for that residential program. Each of the residents were mailed a letter welcoming them to the program. They were each delivered a kitchen pail, and we were also provided a specific link on our website with frequently asked questions and a list of what was appropriate in the pail. I am happy to say that the overall participation in these areas increased from 37% to 72%. So overall participation means just this. Before the pilot, 37% of the 315 homes actually put their green waste cart out for service. And they were serviced every other week at that time. During the pilot, 72% of the customers put their cart out for service on 1 week or both weeks, because we're serviced weekly. So if somebody may not have wasn't putting it out at all before the pilot, they at least put it out 1 of the 2 weeks. So we saw an increase in participation. Unfortunately, some of the areas that had low participation before the pilot continued to have low participation during the pilot. What can we do about that? Well, we know that recycling begins with children, so we will be focusing our outreach to the schools in San Bruno to ensure children bring the composting message home and encourage their families to participate. What kind of things did we learn from doing this pilot? Why did we do it? We found customers using plastic bags, so we've made that a focus in our outreach materials. We also found that customers were putting their kitchen pail curbside for service. So we've made sure to include that information in our material as well. We've also asked the delivery of the kitchen pail to be delivered on the curb so that there was no confusion. I just said it. To have the kitchen pail delivered to the porch so there's no confusion as to not being putting it on the curb. We will also ensure the information delivered with the kitchen pail and the information on our website is bilingual. So I just wanted to share a couple of photos to see the different ways that our residents in the pilot are using the program. Some of them are actually mixing their food with their current yard waste material, and some are using it just for the food waste. So you can see the bottom one has probably a contaminated food service bag, and because the paper bag was contaminated probably with some juice from the food, it went into the green. So they were doing it. They were doing it correctly. Some of the marketing materials that are going to be delivered to the homes, the one on the right is a sticker that's actually going to go right on the outside of the kitchen pail. Gives a really good visual of what's going to be allowed in the program. And the one on the left is a 4-part brochure that fits perfectly inside the kitchen pail. And that has another visual of what's allowed in the pail, and it also has a list of frequently asked questions in both English and Spanish. And then the back of the program has some additional information and tips on how to compost easily in your home. And the last piece of marketing material is a trifold flyer. This will go out to residents around the week of Thanksgiving, and it announces that we will be delivering the kitchen pail the week of December 9th through the 16th. And again, we push the visuals to the customer, showing them what's going to be allowed in their green cart along with all their grass, and some tips on different ways. If you choose not to use the pail, you can use a milk carton. You can wrap your things in newspaper, some of the things that we've been encouraging customers to do throughout this pilot. So with that, I wanted to just give you an update on how the pilots were going, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kirsten? Ken?
Threw a lot of numbers and percentages out. What about comments? What sort of outreach to the customers? What have they been saying? And please be honest.
I will. We've taken, my supervisor's gone out and kind of ridden the route several times to kind of catch people coming out to the curb, bringing their carts to the curb. If he notices they're not participating, he's asking why. And some people just said, I don't really make enough food waste to really participate in the program. That's an honest answer. A few people just said they're just plainly not interested. He's had quite a few say, I'm excited about this. I've told all my friends how easy it is. So we're getting a good mixture of comments from the residents on the pilot.
I'm interested in knowing how they're reacting to having food waste mixed in and it's sitting there for the better part of a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and how does that, if there's any comments about that as far as when it does get cleared out, the residue of in that toter.
I can honestly say, and I checked all the records from the phone records from the customer service representatives. Not one person on the pilot has called to say, it's gross, I can't stand the flies, I'm not doing it. We have had nobody turn in their pail after the pilot has began. We only had one issue at one of the schools, and it was during a really hot season. They hadn't done it, and it was really, really warm, and they had a few issues. We immediately rinsed out and power washed their containers and brought them back, and we haven't seen a problem since.
Any other questions?
Through the chair.
Michael?
You mentioned that the participation, you had some numbers, and you said that those numbers were for people that were participating. Their participation increased, but there were people that didn't participate before and continued not to participate. And I'm wondering how this sample group matches the rest of the city. And as a whole, does the city participate or not participate?
We tried, when we selected the streets, we tried to select different demographics within the city, so that we had a little bit of here, a little bit over there, trying to make a nice conceptual overview of what our city is made up of. As a whole, the customers that don't participate, it's because they don't have a yard or they have a gardener that takes their grass away. The increase in participation during this pilot were from customers that have a gardener but are actually not participating. Like the customer that you saw had the food and the bags and the pumpkin in there, they more likely didn't participate prior because there was no grass in their container. I do believe that the streets that we selected do dynamically make up what our city's made up of. Participation in yard waste right now, I don't have an overall, we haven't taken a number like that. We service the carts and we'll get a true picture when we look at tonnage, when we look at the actual tonnage and watch it move from the garbage to the organics.
Right, and that's what I was kind of hoping we'd see at this point, because I know it's interesting to say, okay, we went from 37 to 72, but you know, I really want to know how dedicated people are going to be to doing this, and I know we've gone down the path, and we're not going to turn back at this point, but you know, I'd really like to see those real numbers that show us that we are really diverting garbage, and that we can do it successfully as a city, that everyone is going to be, at least the majority of us are going to be participating.
I can't wait to bring those numbers back to show the shift. And I will say that I did reach out to the Ecology San Mateo County, who obviously has this program and has had it in force for 3 years now. Their participation is on average about 65%. And that's participation. That's just putting it out to the curb, not knowing really what's in there, if it's grass or food. So the true diversion will come when I can come back and say we shifted as we anticipated from garbage to.
And when can we expect to see some preliminary numbers?
Whenever you as a council would like me to come back and give you numbers, I can do that.
What would be reasonable? How many months did we want to see the program in production?
I would at least 6 months. Give the
months.
program at least 6 months to get underway. So around summer, I think we'll have some numbers to provide and hopefully see a trend. Hopefully we can show a trend from January to June and see how the numbers escalate in the organics portion.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Did a member of the public want to speak on this issue? No, I guess not. Okay. Action by the council? Yeah, introduce the amendment.
I'll introduce the amendment for adoption.
Where's that motion?
Vice
Is
Mayor
there a motion?
O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.